Forget the caricature of the evil advisor, whispering into the ear of a tyrant. Niccolò Machiavelli was not a villain. He was the first true realist of the human condition. He looked at the chaos of 16th century Italy and realized that human nature is not defined by how we ought to act, but by how we actually act. Machiavelli's philosophy is a brutal mirror held up to our own social reality. It exposes the uncomfortable truth that power in business, in leadership, and in personal influence is a game of perception, leverage, and the cold-blooded management of human ambition. He didn't invent manipulation. He simply documented the operating system of the world. In this series, we strip away the moralizing, the myths, and the fear to reveal the strategic framework of power that still governs every boardroom, government, and power structure today. Whether you view him as a devil or a genius, the reality is the same. To understand the world, you must understand Machiavelli. The core of Machiavelli's philosophy is not found in the dark, whispered conspiracies of a fictional villain, but in a profound and unflinching observation of the human condition. When Machiavelli looked at the people around him, at the nobles, the commoners, the soldiers, and the leaders, he did not see the idealized creatures that poets and theologians described. He did not see beings driven by high ideals, abstract justice, or an inherent desire to do the right thing. He saw something much more basic, much more predictable, and much more dangerous. He saw creatures driven by self-interest, fear, and a shallow, shifting sense of loyalty. This is the architecture of realism, the admission that if you want to understand the way the world actually works, you have to stop looking at people as you wish they were and start looking at them as they are. The psychology of human frailty, as Machiavelli understood it, is rooted in the fact that humans are fundamentally insecure. We are creatures of habit and creatures of survival. Most of the time, we are not thinking about the greater good or the long-term health of our community. We are thinking about our own status, our own security, and our own comfort. Because we are so focused on these personal goals, our loyalty to others is remarkably flimsy. Machiavelli famously noted that men are ungrateful, fickle, pretenders, and avoiders of danger. This sounds like an insult, but to Machiavelli, it was a diagnostic tool. If you know that the people you deal with are prone to these behaviors, you can plan for them. If you assume they are noble and constant, you are setting yourself up for total, catastrophic failure. The most dangerous assumption you can make in any position of power is that people will act according to their stated promises. In your professional life, you have likely seen this time and again. A colleague promises to support your project, but the moment their own reputation is at stake, they disappear. A partner swears their allegiance, but the moment a more profitable deal arises, they switch sides. We call this betrayal, but Machiavelli would call it human nature. He argued that men will forget the death of their own father faster than they will forget the loss of their inheritance. This reveals the hierarchy of human motivation. Material security and personal gain almost always trump abstract loyalty or shared history. Understanding this frailty does not require you to be a cynic. It requires you to be a realist. The architecture of realism is built on the understanding that every human being has a price, and that price is often just a reduction in their own perceived risk. If you are a leader, a manager, or simply someone who wants to achieve a specific goal, you have to account for this. You have to build structures and strategies that do not rely on the good heart of others. If your success depends on people doing what is right, you have already lost. If your success depends on people doing what is in their own best interest, you have built a system that is robust and reliable. This psychological insight brings us to the uncomfortable reality of fear versus love. Machiavelli analyzed this dynamic with the clinical precision of a surgeon. He asked a simple question: is it better to be loved or feared? The popular answer, the moral answer, is that it is better to be loved. We want to be liked. We want to be respected. But Machiavelli pointed out that love is a fickle emotion, tied to the fleeting feelings of the person who loves you. When things get difficult, when the pressure rises, when the resources disappear, that love vanishes instantly. Fear, on the other hand, is tied to the instinct for self-preservation. It is a much more stable foundation. People will stay loyal to you, not because they have a warm, fuzzy feeling in their heart, but because they understand the consequences of crossing you. This is not a call to be a tyrant. It is an acknowledgement that human psychology is wired for self-preservation. If you rely on the affection of others to drive your agenda, you are hostage to their changing moods. If you can provide a sense of stability, authority, and perhaps even a reasonable level of apprehension regarding the consequences of failure, you create a structure where people act predictably. They act out of their own necessity, and that makes them dependable. In the modern corporate, social, and political landscapes, this is the secret to getting things done. You don't need everyone to like you. You need them to understand that your goals are the ones that matter and that there is a cost to working against them. The architecture of realism also demands that we accept the inherent vanity of the human ego. We are all deeply, obsessively concerned with how we are perceived. We want to be seen as smart, as successful, as moral, and as important. Machiavelli realized that this vanity is the primary lever of influence. If you want to influence someone, you don't argue with their logic. Logic is easy to defend. You appeal to their ego. You make them feel like your agenda is their idea. You make them feel like their participation is crucial to their own image. When you align your goals with the ego-driven desires of the people around you, you stop having to push people to do what you want. They begin to pull themselves toward it. This is why the idealistic approach to leadership is so often doomed. An idealist tries to change human nature. They try to convince people to be altruistic, to think long-term, and to sacrifice their own interests for the collective. They are trying to run a marathon in the wrong direction. Machiavelli's realist approach is to work with the grain of human nature. If people are self-interested, then show them how your success leads to theirs. If people are insecure, show them how your direction provides them with safety. If people are vain, show them how your path allows them to shine. You are not using them in a malicious way. You are aligning your objectives with the reality of how they think and feel. The psychology of human frailty also includes the human tendency toward complacency. When things are going well, we tend to get lazy. We forget the dangers. We lose our edge. Machiavelli was obsessed with the idea of preparedness, particularly when times are good. He believed that the greatest mistake a leader could make was to assume that their current success was a permanent state of affairs. He argued that the wise individual prepares for the storm while the sun is still shining. This is a difficult psychological shift because we want to believe that our success is a result of our own permanent virtue, not a fleeting circumstance. But the realist knows that luck, or Fortuna, is a major factor, and that we must always be prepared for the moment when that luck turns against us. Consider the common human reaction to bad news or failure. We tend to deny it, to look for someone else to blame, or to hide it until it is too late. This is a frailty that can destroy an organization or a career in weeks. The Machiavellian realist does the opposite. They confront the reality of the bad news immediately. They strip away the emotional narrative, and they deal with the core issue. By removing the ego from the failure, you gain the ability to pivot. Most people are unable to do this because their psychological need to be right is stronger than their need to be effective. The realist realizes that being right is a trivial luxury, but being effective is the only thing that ensures survival. The architecture of realism is ultimately a call for psychological independence. If you understand that everyone you deal with is driven by their own complex, self-interested, and often frail set of motives, you stop being disappointed. You stop being shocked by betrayal. You stop being blindsided by the selfishness of others. You start to see it as a mechanical process. You observe the input, you predict the output, and you navigate accordingly. This removes the emotional baggage that makes most people so ineffective. You are no longer reacting to the perceived badness of others. You are reacting to the observable facts of their behavior. This detached perspective is the foundation of true power. When you stop taking the actions of others personally, you gain an enormous amount of mental clarity. You realize that their behavior is rarely about you. It is about their own fears, their own ambitions, and their own insecurities. Once you see this, you have the freedom to act with strategy rather than emotion. You can observe the game board, move your pieces, and accept that the other players are doing exactly what their nature dictates. This is the mark of a master of the game. They are not surprised by the moves. They anticipated them. We must also be honest about our own frailties. Machiavelli was not saying that other people are fickle and self-interested while we are inherently perfect. He was saying that this is the human condition. You too are susceptible to your own ego, your own fear, and your own vanity. The architecture of realism requires you to apply the same cold analysis to yourself. You have to be able to look in the mirror and ask, am I doing this because it is the right strategic move? Or am I doing it because I want to feel important? Am I avoiding this conflict because it is tactically wise, or because I am afraid of the confrontation? By holding yourself to this standard, you cultivate a level of self-control that makes you virtually immune to the manipulations of others. This is why Machiavelli's work is still studied in the corridors of power today. It is not because it is evil. It is because it is the most honest manual we have on how to navigate the reality of being a human being among other human beings. It is a guide to the architecture of realism, a blueprint for those who want to build something lasting in a world that is inherently chaotic and driven by the shifting tides of human desire. It asks you to grow up, to let go of the fairy tales of the herd, and to accept the challenge of being a strategist in your own life. It is important to remember that all of this is simply about effectiveness. If you want to achieve something in this world, if you want to influence your industry, lead your team, or secure your own future, you are entering into a field of competitive human interactions. You do not get to choose the rules of the game. The rules are dictated by human nature itself. You can either be a victim of those rules, or you can be a master of them. You can be the one who drifts along with the herd, hoping that everything will work out, or you can be the one who understands the mechanics of the machine and steers it toward your objectives. The architecture of realism is not for the faint of heart. It is for those who are willing to face the truth, even when that truth is uncomfortable. It is for those who are willing to recognize that the world is a complex, high-stakes game that is played on the basis of influence and leverage. Once you accept this, you stop looking for goodness in the way the world treats you, and you start looking for the levers you can pull to ensure that you are moving toward your own goals. You start to respect the reality of the obstacles in your path, and you start to develop the specific capabilities required to overcome them. This does not mean you have to abandon your own morals. It means you have to be able to separate your personal morality from your strategic actions. You can be a decent, honorable person in your private life while still being a calculating, strategic, and effective operator in your public or professional life. In fact, Machiavelli would argue that to be an effective protector of what you care about, you must be capable of acting strategically. If you are unable to protect your values, they don't mean anything. Your goodness is only as effective as your ability to ensure it survives in a world that doesn't share it. This is the great, misunderstood genius of Machiavelli. He was an advocate for the strong, yes, but he was also an advocate for the necessary. He showed us that the world is a fragile place, and that the things we cherish require constant, vigilant, and intelligent defense. He showed us that the greatest danger to the things we love is our own naivety. If we refuse to understand the reality of power, we leave our future in the hands of those who do understand it. And in a world driven by human frailty, those people are rarely the ones you want at the helm. So, as you study this, don't look for a way to become a villain. Look for a way to become an adult. Look for a way to shed the childish illusions of the herd and to take up the mantle of an effective, conscious strategist. Look for a way to lead your life with the understanding that you are a participant in a vast, complicated, and often ruthless network of human interests. You have the potential to be a force of stability, a creator of value, and a master of your own destiny. But to do that, you must be willing to see the world as it is, not as you wish it to be. You must be willing to live within the architecture of realism. The perception machine is the most potent weapon in the arsenal of power. It is based on the chilling reality that in the eyes of the public, the social circle, or the corporate hierarchy, the truth is not what actually happened. The truth is what people believe happened. Machiavelli understood that power is not just the ability to do something, it is the ability to convince others that you have the capacity, the authority, and the right to do it. This is why he emphasized that while it is good to be virtuous, it is essential to appear virtuous. Most people are not capable of seeing the complex reality behind a leader's decisions, but they are very capable of reacting to the image that is projected before them. When you control your reputation, you are essentially programming the reality of the people around you. You are creating a framework within which they interpret your every move. If your reputation is one of competence, every mistake you make will be excused as an anomaly. If your reputation is one of kindness, people will forgive your errors of judgment as misunderstandings. You are not just building a brand, You are building a filter that forces the world to see you in the way that best serves your strategic interests. The perception machine is the engine that keeps you in command, regardless of the chaos that might be happening behind the scenes. This requires a level of theatricality that makes most people uncomfortable. We are raised to value authenticity, to be ourselves, and to show our true colors. But in the world of high-stakes influence, that is a tactical error. You must understand that you are always on stage. Whether you are in a meeting, an interview, or a casual conversation, you are projecting an image. The master of the perception machine knows when to be humble, when to be aggressive, when to be vulnerable, and when to be unreachable. You are not being fake. You are being intentional. You are curating the information that the world receives so that they arrive at the conclusion you desire. Consider the role of mystery. A person who is an open book, who shares every thought, every weakness, and every plan, is a person who has surrendered their power. They are predictable. If you know exactly how someone will react, you can easily lead them into a trap. The perception machine thrives on controlled ambiguity. When you are slightly mysterious, people fill in the blanks with their own projections. They assume you are smarter, more capable, and more dangerous than you might actually be. By giving people only what they need to see, you force them to respect the parts of you that they cannot see. You become a subject of speculation, and speculation is a form of power. This also means you must be a master of the controlled reveal. You do not show your hand until the moment it provides the greatest impact. In professional negotiations, this is the difference between an amateur who reveals their position too early and a master who waits until the opponent is already committed to the structure of the deal. By managing the flow of information, you control the pace of the interaction. You lead the other person to believe they are the ones making the decisions, while in reality, you have already built the fence within which they are allowed to roam. This is the ultimate victory of the perception machine, to make your will appear as if it were the consensus of the group. We must also discuss the role of symbolism. Humans are visual and narrative creatures. We do not respond to data. We respond to symbols. A leader who dresses with extreme precision, who uses calculated language, and who maintains a certain physical distance from the crowd is building a reputation of authority. You are creating a persona that is larger than your physical self. This is why certain people in power seem to command a room the moment they walk in. It is not necessarily because they are the smartest or the strongest. It is because they have spent years or decades crafting an image that signifies, I am the one in charge. When you internalize this, you start to see that status is not something you are given. It is something you wear, you speak, and you perform. Of course, the most dangerous part of the perception machine is the management of scandal and failure. When something goes wrong, the amateur goes into a panic, tries to hide the truth, or lashes out. The master knows that a crisis is actually a high-leverage opportunity to define their character. If you manage a scandal well by taking limited responsibility, while shifting the narrative to your own resilience, you can actually come out of it with a stronger reputation than you had before. You show the world that you are a force that can withstand pressure. You demonstrate that you are a survivor. This is how you use negative events to solidify your position in the perception machine. This is not a call to be a pathological liar. On the contrary, the most effective manipulators of reputation are often people who are fundamentally honest, because it makes their occasional departures from the truth so much more believable. If you lie constantly, you are a known deceiver. If you are known as a person of high integrity, you can tell a single, calculated lie at a crucial moment, and nobody will even think to question it. The perception machine is built on the foundation of credibility. You must invest in your reputation like you invest in a bank account. You cannot withdraw more than you have deposited. This is why you must be very careful about when and where you choose to leverage your image. You must also be aware of the echo chamber effect. Once your reputation is established, the world will start to reinforce it for you. People will tell stories about your past successes that weren't even true. They will attribute motives to you that you never had. This is a very dangerous time. The perception machine can start to run itself, and you can lose sight of reality. You must stay grounded. You must remain a cold-blooded student of your own image. If you start to believe your own hype, you will eventually make a mistake that contradicts your reputation, and that is when you will fall. The perception must always be subservient to the strategy. It is also vital to understand that your reputation is not just about what you do, it is about who you choose to be seen with. Your associations are a shortcut to your own reputation. If you are constantly seen in the company of the incompetent, you will be perceived as incompetent, regardless of your actual skill. If you align yourself with those who are perceived as powerful, successful, and elite, some of that perception will rub off on you. This is the halo effect. It is a psychological shortcut that people use to categorize you. Use it to your advantage. Curate your circle with the same precision that you curate your words. Consider the subtle power of silence. Most people feel the need to fill the air with noise. They feel the need to explain themselves, to justify their choices, and to argue their points. This is a massive drain on the perception machine. When you are silent, you are powerful. You force others to look at you and wonder what you are thinking. You force them to be the ones who explain themselves. Silence is an asset that can be used to make others nervous, to force them to reveal their hand, and to maintain an aura of unflappable control. In a world of noise, the one who knows how to be silent is the one who is heard the loudest. This is a demanding way to live. It requires a constant, vigilant consciousness. You are effectively managing a business that is you. You are the CEO of your reputation, the head of your public relations, and the chief strategist of your own image. It is exhausting, yes, but it is also the only way to ensure that your impact in the world is not left to chance. If you do not define who you are, the world will define you, and they will define you in a way that limits your power and keeps you in your place. They will define you as a hard worker, a team player, or a good soldier, all terms that keep you working for someone else's goal. If you want to be the architect of your own destiny, you must be the architect of your own reputation. You must understand that the perception machine is not about being nice. It is about being perceived in the way that gives you the maximum possible leverage in any given situation. This requires you to be cold, calculated, and entirely devoid of the emotional need for validation. You are not seeking a pat on the back. You are seeking an advantage. You are not looking for friends. You are looking for allies, for influence, and for the capacity to shape the outcome of your own life. Do not be afraid of the manipulator label. If you are using your influence to build, to create, and to lead, you are not a manipulator in the sense of a common swindler. You are a leader. Every great leader in history has been a master of the perception machine. They have all understood that they had to project a version of themselves that was worthy of the mantle they were carrying. They have all understood that the image was a part of the service they were providing. When you are the one holding the line, the people need to see a face that is confident, reliable, and strong. Start applying this today. Look at the people around you, your colleagues, your competitors, your superiors. How are they managing their perception machine? What signals are they sending? What image are they trying to project? By observing them, you will learn to see the architecture of the reputation. You will see that everyone is playing this game, whether they admit it or not. The only difference is that most people are playing it unconsciously, and therefore, they are losing. They are being managed by their own reputation rather than managing it. Decide that you will be different. Decide that you will be the one who takes control of the narrative. Decide that you will be the one who understands that your reputation is a tool, a lever, and a foundational element of your strategy. This will change the way you speak, the way you listen, the way you dress, and the way you hold yourself. It will turn you from a passive participant in your social world into an active creator of your own social standing. This is not just a tactical advantage. It is the path to becoming an individual who can walk through the world with the confidence of someone who has mastered the rules of the game. Keep refining the machine. As you grow, your reputation will need to evolve. You cannot be the same person you were 5 years ago, and you should not be projecting the same image. Your perception machine must be agile. It must be able to shift as you move into different fields, as you encounter new opponents, and as you pursue larger goals. This is the mark of the lifelong strategist. You are not fixed. You are a fluid, evolving force, and your reputation is the map of that evolution. Remember the ultimate goal. You are not seeking fame. Fame is a trap. You are seeking influence. Influence is the ability to achieve your objectives without ever having to engage in the messy, wasteful business of force. If you manage the perception machine correctly, You will find that you can achieve more by being perceived in the right way than you could by working twice as hard in the shadows. This is the efficiency of power. This is the brilliance of the Machiavellian mind. Use it wisely, use it decisively, and use it to build the life you have defined for yourself. The concept of power, as Machiavelli frames it, is not a static object you acquire. It is a dynamic process you sustain through the masterful interplay of two forces, Fortuna and virtu. If you fail to understand these two elements, you are not playing the game of power. You are merely a piece being moved by someone else. Fortuna represents the chaotic, uncontrollable, and often indifferent circumstances of life, the random events, the shifts in the economy, the unexpected crises, and the moments of pure luck. Virtue, on the other hand, is not virtue in the traditional moral sense. It is the masculine strength of character, the strategic agility, and the cold-blooded capability to seize opportunity and master your own environment. The master of power is the one who accepts that Fortuna provides the opening, but virtu determines whether you have the strength to walk through it. Most people live in a state of delusion regarding Fortuna. They believe that if they are good and work hard, life will reward them. This is the ultimate strategic error. Life is not a meritocracy. It is a battlefield. Fortuna is a river that can flood, destroying everything in its path, or it can provide a powerful current that carries you to victory. The amateur stands on the bank, complaining that the river is unfair. The strategist builds dikes, dams, and canals. They do not try to stop the river, because they know that is impossible. Instead, they use the energy of the river to serve their own purpose. This is the essence of leverage, turning the uncontrollable into the foundation of your own stability. To master virtu, you must develop a mind that is constantly scanning for the hinge of every situation. In any conflict, negotiation, or professional engagement, there is a point of maximum leverage, a single decision, a single piece of information, or a single tactical move that, if executed correctly, can flip the entire situation in your favor. This is not about brute force. Brute force is what you use when you have run out of strategy. Virtue is the ability to exert the minimum amount of force at the exact point where it will have the maximum impact. It is the art of being decisive. You must learn to wait for the moment where Fortuna offers you a gap, and then strike with a level of intensity that leaves no room for your opponent to recover. The relationship between Fortuna and virtu is often compared to a man facing an angry sea. You cannot stop the sea from being angry, but you can build a ship that is capable of navigating the storm. In your own life, you must constantly ask yourself, what am I doing to prepare for the inevitable shift in fortune? Are you saving your resources for when the market turns? Are you building alliances for when your current support system inevitably crumbles? The person with virtu never relies on the sun shining forever. They are constantly fortifying their position, so that when the chaos comes, they are not caught in the open. This is the difference between a person who is constantly lucky and a person who is consistently successful. The successful person is simply someone who has built the structures that allow them to absorb the shocks of Fortuna and use them as fuel. Mastering leverage also requires you to be a master of the calculated risk. Machiavelli was clear. He who is too cautious is just as likely to fail as he who is too reckless. The world moves too fast for the hesitant. If you wait until you have perfect information, the opportunity has already passed to someone more aggressive. But if you leap without understanding the terrain, you are inviting disaster. The trick is to develop a calibrated intuition. You do this by studying the patterns of history and human behavior until you can predict the likely outcome of a scenario with a high degree of accuracy. When you have this level of insight, you don't need to be lucky. You just need to be fast. You need to act before the rest of the world has even figured out that the game has changed. This brings us to the importance of the unpredictable strike. Leverage is often lost the moment you become predictable. If your opponents or competitors know exactly how you will react, they can plan their strategy around you. You must maintain a degree of strategic opacity. You should be known for being excellent, but you should never be fully known. Your methods, your connections, and your timing should always be just outside of the reach of those who want to undermine you. This creates a state of psychological apprehension in others. They are hesitant to attack you because they don't know what kind of response you are capable of triggering. This is a form of passive leverage. You win the battle without ever having to engage in the combat. You must also understand the concept of economy of force. In the exercise of power, the goal is always to get the most for the least. If you have to burn all your capital, all your time, and all your reputation to win a single victory, you are not a master of power, you are an amateur. A true strategist wins by creating a situation where the opponent realizes that resisting you is too costly. You create a psychological or material environment where their only logical choice is to concede. This is not about fighting, it is about outmaneuvering. You win by controlling the terms of the engagement so completely that the conflict is effectively over before the first strike is even landed. There is a cold, mechanical reality to this. You must learn to value your resources, your time, your money, your influence above all else. People will ask you for your help, they will ask for your advice, and they will try to drain your energy for their own purposes. If you are not careful, you will become a resource for other people's ambitions. The master of virtu is stingy with their leverage. They do not spend their influence on small matters. They keep their powder dry. They wait for the moments that truly matter, and then they apply their weight with absolute, focused intensity. This is the discipline of the effective individual. We should also address the strategy of the corner. Machiavelli warned against driving your opponent into a corner if you don't have to. When a person feels they have absolutely nothing left to lose, they become irrational and dangerous. This is a failure of leverage. A better way is to leave your opponent a golden bridge, a way to retreat that allows them to save face while you get exactly what you want. You achieve your objective, they get to survive, and the conflict ends. This is the height of strategic intelligence. You are not interested in the ego gratification of total annihilation. You are interested in the efficiency of the result. Always leave your opponent a path that makes surrendering to your will seem like the most reasonable and even beneficial option for them. This requires you to master your own emotional impulses. The biggest destroyer of leverage is anger. When you are angry, you are no longer making decisions based on strategy. You are making them based on the need to punish. Anger is a weakness. It signals to your opponent that you are emotionally invested, which means you are vulnerable. When you are operating from a place of virtu, you are detached. You look at the situation with the coolness of a chess player. If the opponent offends you, you do not retaliate in the moment. You wait for the right strategic opportunity to make your move, and you make it when it causes the maximum damage to their position, not their feelings. You must also become a student of timing. Fortuna is like a tide. It comes in and it goes out. There are periods of expansion where you should be aggressive and bold, and there are periods of consolidation where you should be quiet and defensive. The person who is aggressive when the tide is going out will find themselves stranded and exposed. The person who is defensive when the tide is coming in will miss the opportunity of a lifetime. You have to develop the sensitivity to read the environment. You have to know when to push, when to wait, and when to get out of the way. This is the intuitive mastery of the environment that separates the leaders from the followers. Consider the role of alliances in your leverage. Machiavelli argued that you should always seek to build alliances with those who are in a position to help you, but you should never rely on them as if they are your own strength. Your leverage must always reside in your own capability. If your power depends on someone else's choice, you are not powerful, you are a dependent. Always build your position so that you are the one holding the cards. If you have to work with others, make the arrangement such that your interests are aligned. Never make yourself a hostage to the honor of an ally, because honor is a thin shield when the stakes get high. This also means being prepared for the inevitable betrayal. A strategist treats everyone as if they might turn, not because they are paranoid, but because they are prepared. When you build your life with the understanding that people change and loyalties shift, you build in safeguards. You don't put all your information in one person's hands. You don't put all your resources in one account. You diversify your leverage. This is the institutionalization of your own survival. It is the way you ensure that no single failure, no single betrayal, and no single shift in fortune can take you down. Remember that Fortuna is not your enemy. Fortuna is the playing field. Virtu is your skill as a player. You cannot play the game without the field, but you cannot win the game without the skill. Spend your life developing your virtu. Train your mind, sharpen your strategic instincts, build your resources, and learn to remain calm under the pressure of the chaotic tides of life. If you do this, you will find that the harder the world gets, the stronger you become. You will thrive on the very chaos that destroys the weak, because you have transformed yourself into someone who knows how to use the energy of the world to build your own destiny. This is the ultimate goal of the Machiavellian life. It is not to become a ruler of nations, that is the ancient context. It is to become the ruler of your own life, the strategist of your own circumstances, and the architect of your own success. It is the realization that you are the one responsible for your own leverage. Every single day, you are making choices that increase or decrease your capacity to act. Every interaction is a chance to build your position. Every mistake is a chance to learn the mechanics of the game. Do not be discouraged by the complexity of the world. The world is complex precisely because it is full of people who are trying to navigate these same forces. But most of them are doing it without a map. Most of them are doing it based on emotion, on impulse, or on the blind hope that things will just work out. By understanding the mechanics of Fortuna and virtu, you have stepped outside of that cycle. You have chosen to be a conscious player. You have chosen to be a student of the craft. As you look forward, make this your primary mission: to be the most capable, the most prepared, and the most strategically aware person in every room you enter. Not because you want to be the center of attention, but because you want to have the leverage to ensure that you are always moving in the direction you have chosen. You have the potential to be a force that cannot be pushed around by the circumstances of the world. You have the potential to take the raw, chaotic energy of the universe and forge it into the life you want. This is the power of virtu. This is the mastery of leverage. And it is the only way to play the game and win. The modern arena is not the marble halls of 16th century Florence, but the structure remains identical. The prince today does not necessarily wear a crown, nor does he command a standing army in the literal sense. He is the CEO steering a multinational corporation through a volatile market. He is the political operative managing the narrative of a national campaign. He is the entrepreneur disrupting an entire industry with nothing but a vision and the audacity to execute it. Machiavelli's principles were never meant to be historical artifacts. They are the governing laws of all high-stakes human systems. To apply them in the modern arena is to strip away the illusion that we live in a civilized world of pure meritocracy, and to embrace the reality that we live in a world of competitive influence. In the corporate landscape, the application of Machiavellianism begins with the realization that every organization is a mini-state. There are hierarchies, there are factions, and there is a constant underlying struggle for resources and recognition. The amateur employee believes that if they work hard, their output will be recognized and rewarded by a benevolent authority. The modern prince, however, understands that visibility is a currency. You cannot simply produce results. You must ensure those results are attributed to your strategic direction. You must map the political landscape of your organization. Who holds the true power? Who are the gatekeepers? And who is the lion that can be turned against your rivals? You do not treat the corporate structure as a family. You treat it as an ecosystem of leverage. This does not mean you become a backstabber, as the common myth suggests. Machiavelli warned against unnecessary cruelty because it creates enemies that do not serve your long-term stability. The modern prince is surgical. He identifies the obstacles to his goals, be it a toxic process, an inefficient department, or a rival who prioritizes their own ego over the company's objective, and he removes them using the tools of political navigation. This is the art of positioning. You align yourself with the winning faction. You make yourself indispensable to the power brokers, and you ensure that your progress is perceived as a benefit to the system at large. You become the solution that the organization cannot afford to lose. The modern arena also demands a new understanding of the appearance of virtue. In the digital age, reputation is distributed globally and stored forever. The prince of today must be a master of the controlled narrative. You do not have to be a saint, but you must project the image of a leader who is aligned with the values of the modern audience. This is the theater of corporate social responsibility, the brand image of the executive, and the public-facing persona of the innovator. You use these symbols to build a buffer of goodwill around your actions. When you need to make a tough, unpopular, or cutthroat decision to ensure the survival of your project, that buffer of reputation allows you to move without being destroyed by the court of public opinion. There is a psychological burden to this that the average person never faces: the burden of sovereignty. To act as a prince in the modern arena is to accept that you are the final authority in your own sphere. If the project fails, the blame is yours. If the market shifts, the pivot is yours. Most people spend their lives looking for someone else to take the final responsibility, which is why they are destined to remain subordinates. The modern prince embraces this isolation. He understands that the moment he starts looking for an excuse or a superior to blame, he has surrendered his status as a decision maker. This independence is what creates the Machiavellian edge, the ability to make choices that are logically correct but emotionally difficult, without the need for external validation. We must also analyze the modern application of Fortuna. Today, Fortuna is represented by the sudden, violent shifts in technology and global events. A company can be at the top of its field today and irrelevant by next year because of a single breakthrough by a competitor. The prince of the modern arena manages this by cultivating strategic agility. He does not build a monolithic, rigid structure that breaks when the wind changes. He builds a nimble, modular organization that can adapt, pivot, and capitalize on the shifts in fortune. He uses the chaos of the market to destroy his static, slower competitors. He treats the unpredictability of the world not as a nuisance, but as the very environment in which he thrives. The strategy of fear versus love is even more relevant in the modern workplace, though it must be translated carefully. You do not want to be a boss who is feared because you are abusive. That is the mark of a weak, insecure leader who needs to scream to feel big. That destroys long-term stability. You want to be a leader who is feared in the sense that you have absolute, unwavering standards. People should fear letting you down, not because you will yell, but because your expectation of excellence is so high that failing to meet it is a personal embarrassment. When you set this bar, you create a culture of high performance. Love is the byproduct of that performance. It is the respect that comes from being part of a winning team. This leads us to the concept of the modern campaign. Whether you are running for office or trying to convince a board of directors to approve a massive acquisition, you are running a campaign. Machiavelli knew that power was gained by controlling the flow of information. Today, this is the art of the data-driven narrative. You have to be the one who defines the terms of the conversation. You have to be the one who provides the data that supports your direction. If you allow your opponents to define the problems you are trying to solve, you will always be defending their frame. You must set the frame, you must set the agenda, and you must move the conversation toward the solution that you have already decided is the correct one. There is a deep, psychological loneliness in this path. When you are the prince, you are always the one looking ahead. You see the risks that others ignore. You see the opportunities that others are too afraid to grasp. And you see the threats that are coming from the periphery. You cannot share this vision with everyone, because not everyone has the stomach for it. You must have a few trusted confidants who understand the strategy, but you must remain the final arbiter of your own conscience. This is the sovereignty of the mind. It is the ability to walk through a room full of people who are happy to be comfortable, while you are consciously, deliberately building a future that they cannot yet see. Many will look at this and call it ruthless. The modern prince understands that ruthlessness is just a label used by those who are afraid to take the necessary steps to protect their vision. If you have a goal that is valuable, a business that creates jobs, a policy that improves lives, a product that changes the world, then you have a moral obligation to be effective. To be ineffective because you were too scared to play the game is the ultimate failure of responsibility. You are not being ruthless for the sake of power. You are being ruthless in the service of the objective. You are doing the hard, unpleasant, and strategic work that ensures your vision survives in a world that is inherently indifferent to it. As you look at your own position in the modern arena, ask yourself where you are playing the subordinate and where you are playing the prince. Are you waiting for permission, or are you creating the conditions for your own authority? Are you reacting to the shifts in the market, or are you anticipating them? Are you relying on the goodwill of others, or are you building a foundation of leverage that allows you to act independently? Every aspect of your life, from your career path to your personal brand, is a field upon which these principles can be applied. The modern prince is not a relic of history. He is the most relevant archetype for anyone who wants to command their own life. The final lesson is the importance of the long game. Machiavelli was not interested in the short-term win if it cost him the long-term position. He knew that you could win the battle and lose the war. The modern arena is filled with people who are so obsessed with the next quarterly report, the next election cycle, or the next social media trend that they have no foundation. The prince builds a reputation, a network, and a body of results that compound over time. He understands that power is a marathon, not a sprint. He is willing to sacrifice short-term ego gains to ensure that his long-term position is unassailable. This is the patience of the master. You are living in an era where the tools of influence are more powerful than at any time in human history. You have the ability to communicate, to network, and to project your image to millions of people. But these tools are neutral. They can be used by the herd to distract themselves into oblivion, or they can be used by the prince to reshape the reality of his own world. The difference is not in the technology, it is in the mind behind the screen. It is in the willingness to apply the architecture of realism to your own situation. It is in the decision to stop being a spectator and to start being a strategist. Do not be distracted by the moralizing of the weak. They will always try to tell you that the game should be played differently. They will always try to convince you that power is something that should be avoided. They say this because they are afraid of the responsibility that comes with the game. Do not let their fear dictate your strategy. You have a purpose, you have a vision, and you have the potential to make an impact. Use the principles of the modern prince not to become a caricature, but to become a force of nature. Use them to ensure that the things you care about, your work, your family, your goals, are protected, nurtured, and allowed to grow to their maximum potential. The arena is waiting. It is complex, it is competitive, and it is indifferent to your struggle. But it is also a theater of infinite possibility for those who know how to play the game. You are now equipped with the map. You understand the frailty of the human condition. You understand the power of the perception machine. You understand the mechanics of leverage, and you understand the modern arena. The rest is execution. It is the daily, grinding, tactical commitment to your objectives. It is the refusal to accept the limits that others have placed on you. It is the decision to walk forward with the clarity, the focus, and the strategy of the prince. Go out and build your reality. The game is yours to play.